That's a It's an osprey. We hear them a lot where we live. We live in a really very osprey rich location here on the south coast of Massachusetts. And you might hear them too, because they live in just about every single So I wanted to start out by giving you a little bit of my background. As I was talking to some of the folks who joined earlier, I started out as an art teacher. I went to Rutgers for both my undergrad and my grad degree. And this first picture is me, little Pam, as an art teacher. I worked for 2 years with kids that have special needs. And then here was my last, well, I'll tell you what happened. So I loved art, but I never thought I was that good at it. And I really was not good at classroom management skills. So after about 2 years of teaching, I went back to grad school and I got my graduate degree in social work. And I've been a therapist ever since, working on helping people heal from complex trauma, anxiety, depression, and I still do have a small practice that I do a day and a half a week. So this is 1980, and then this is me doing a training as a clinical director. That was my last in-person job. Now I'm all on Zoom. So I thought that would be something interesting for you to see, because we all start in different places. And I'm gonna try to begin, at the beginning of this journey. But oh no, that would take all night. I'm not going to bore you with it's a shame I can't see all your faces. I hope you're laughing at some of my jokes. This is me and my grandmother and my mom, and I'm not going to tell you anymore. That's self-explanatory. Tonight I'm going to talk about the creative process and the importance of being bold and taking risks and finding community, and some ideas that maybe will take your art in a whole other direction. All that in, I don't even know, probably not even an hour. So how did I go from being a therapist who wasn't doing any real art for a really long time to what you saw in the first slide? Now I have this illustrated book out about ospreys and art and all that stuff. So last spring, I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to volunteer for Audubon, Massachusetts Audubon, the Osprey Nest Monitoring Project on the Westport River. And what that means is I would go out weekly on this boat and check nests and see if there were any eggs, see if there were any chicks. We wrote data down, and was given the hope that I might even get to help to band birds, which I'll show you in a bit. And also with the translocation process, which I will talk with you about as well. So this first slide, this slide here, you're seeing me on my very first. I'm so excited. That was Matt Zucconi from Mass Audubon. He was our captain that he took the boat out with us every week. This was his first job for Mass Audubon. He's a young guy. And the name of the boat is the Lucky Me. And in minutes, I am going to climb my very first extraordinarily tall ladder up to an osprey nest out on the marshes and see if there are any eggs. And so you can see with this slide, now these guys are about 6 feet tall. So that makes that nest about 12 feet high. And I don't know how many of you have been or are 65 years old and climbing 12 feet high ladders. I don't know. It was very challenging. I was terrified. And I thought it was going to end right there, but it didn't. I got my courage up and I did it. And it was incredible. And one of the reasons why I went and began volunteering here is because I wanted to get I thought I'd get some good photos to use in some of the paintings that I had started to do. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in a few minutes as well. And the experience very, very quickly morphed into something that was really extraordinary, that I knew probably from the very beginning that I needed to record. So I'm seeing a message in the chat box. Oh, I think Barbara is unmuted. I can hear background noise. Okay, I don't hear background noise anymore, so I think we're okay. Thank you, though. Okay. Excuse me. So this is, I call this room with a view. Very few of you will get to experience this, so I want to take a photo. It is the view from the top of the nest of the marshes. It's absolutely gorgeous and windy. And this is one of the illustrations that I did from that photo for the book. So you can just kind of see how inspirational that really was. Not going to read you a lot of passages from the book, maybe just two, but I'm going to read you this one because I think, or at least a part of it. So this is how I felt when I saw them. The eggs are sitting right on top in the middle of a center made up of twigs, seaweed, soft kelp, and grasses. I also noticed a conch shell and tiny crab claw and 2 decomposed corn cobs. Corn cobs. I know that ospreys are strictly fish eaters, consuming fish that mostly aren't appetizing to us humans. Apparently, they're also known hoarders too. Go figure. But back to those eggs. My God, those eggs. Small, about the size of extra large chicken eggs. But that's where the comparison ends. They had the color of French vanilla ice cream with melted milk chocolate morsels and dark reddish brown cinnamon swirls. If you've ever done a wax batik or made a tie-dye t-shirt, the patterns are like that. Some of the splotches are shaped like small continents, a view of the earth if you're flying far above. Maybe like a bird soaring overhead, what they might see. Isn't nature incredible? And that was basically my thoughts that's always what I'm thinking, but that was really what I was thinking for most of the time of this adventure. So back to the beginning. This is really the beginning. So how did I get back to art? How did I get back to doing art after leaving it behind so many decades before? Well, one of the things that I did was I had gone to a class at WAG. I don't even know if Barbara knows this. On August 27th, it was on how to draw birds. And so this was a little bird that, this little killdeer, but this was my sketchbook from the class where they're just talking to us about gestures and about anatomical parts of birds. So I'd encourage people to go take the class. It's really, those classes are super fun. So that class gave me some confidence that maybe I could return to my art after all. And so I also went to the South Coast Artist Group open studio tour that summer. And I asked, I just wanted to know, well, how did you do this, Mrs. Artist, Miss Artist, Mr. Artist? And a lot of them had surprisingly been art teachers, but a lot of them had other careers as well. And it was interesting to hear that. So I went also to the South Coast Artist Group meeting in the fall. That was the first meeting I went to in 2022. And we were encouraged to bring a painting with us. And this was the painting that I brought and the photograph that I used to do that painting. I gave that painting actually to my son who wanted it. And what happened was during that meeting, people were encouraged to put little sticky notes on whatever work you brought. Some people brought sculptures. And I still have those in my desk. If I I'm not going to do that now, but I can show you. These were some of the things that people wrote: texture, magnificent, interesting composition, presence. They were supposed to just write 1 or 2 words. And again, like really started to give me some confidence that that I could do this. But I was so, I have to say, I was so nervous going into this meeting. A, because I knew there were all these amazing artists there, but B, because I didn't know anyone there. And I'm not I'm more naturally a shy person, and do better with one-on-one, which is kind of why I'm glad I don't even see you guys right now. I'm just talking to my screen. No, I wish I could see you, but that experience again of sort of putting yourself out there in situations where you might not normally show up is a way that you start creating community, starting to create an artistic community or whatever kind of community you might be lacking in your life. So for some reason, South Coast Artists Group then asked me if I wanted to do a demo of my art at the October Harvest Fair. This is, again, I can't remember who asked me. I think it was Lindsay. These are all things that are described a lot more detail in my book. And here I am. And here's Osprey on one leg. And I'm supposed to be giving a demo, but really all I'm doing is talking to people who come up because I can't paint and demonstrate and talk at the same time. So it was really fun. And what happened at that fair was I met a woman named Barbara Healy, who you met at the beginning of this program. And I had described to her that I really was very interested in, at some point, donating art or getting good enough at art that I could donate it or sell it and raise money for different nature organizations. And she said, "Oh, Pam, maybe you'd be interested in this exhibit that's coming up in the winter. It's a fundraiser for the Westport River watershed. You might want to do that." And she promised me that she would send me the email. So that was fantastic. This guy over here is Lincoln Dark. He was giving a talk on ospreys and bluebirds at the same time that I was at the fair, which was lovely. So I didn't really get a chance to see him or stay for that talk. But the other thing that happened was a woman came up to the booth, and her name is Gina Pertel. And that's, again, described in a lot more detail in my book. But that meeting and meeting Barbara really changed the trajectory of, or the course of this part of my life. I really do believe that. So thank you, Barbara. And I don't think Gina's here, but I will thank her in person as well. So I was a birder for many years, however. This was
Well, thanks, Pamela. And that class that you took, that was with Jean McKay?
Yes. It was great. It was really a great class. So let's see. Here I am. So I had been a birder for a really long time. I loved taking photographs of birds. And that fall of 2022, I began painting for the first time very full, whole watercolor sheets of osprey nests and platforms. And I had been on the estuary on the Westport River, and we had discovered that shortly after moving to Dartmouth. And I was so excited by our journeying through that estuary. I couldn't even fall asleep that night. There were so many ospreys. I took so many pictures. And I don't know that I'd ever really felt that excited about a subject matter before. So that was like really a spark. And also deciding that the paintings needed to be full sheets, because I could fill a full sheet with a platform, a nest, and a bird. And that's kind of the order that I paint in. So first I will sketch out the platform, and then I will use different things. Sometimes I'll use like a salt I'll do a wash of watercolor and I'll throw some salt on it, and that makes an interesting texture. Sometimes I will use the masking. There's like masking liquid, so you can still see little white lines in the nest. But I'm really trying to capture mostly the shadows on the platform and that geometric, that really straight edge, which I use a straight edge ruler. Then the texture of the nest, which is really free floating and just kind of fun. I just kind of try to make it a little abstract. And then for the bird, I really try to capture whatever personality, and I use a lot of sepia tones. I'm using a little more color these days, but I kind of keep going back to the sepia tones because that's what I see out on the marshes. And a lot of days here, there isn't blue sky. There's sort of gray or fog. So that's why I don't usually put a whole lot of sky in my background, because when I'm looking up at the nest, it's either up against a cloud or it's, it's foggy or whatever it is. So that's kind of a bit of my process, just that artists are kind of interested in that. So, back to Barbara Healy. And what happened was she did email me, and I did enter my painting, or enter it. I gave it, donated it in February of 2023, and it was there, and I didn't get any bids for like the whole week. And I was like, oh, and I was gallery sitting. I was like, oh man, no, this dream is not going to be reality. I really do suck. I'm not going to do it. It's okay. I'll figure out something else, I guess. Darn, I really wanted to donate, my art, but what happened, whoops, hold on. What happened was that that painting actually was in a bidding war at the end of that auction, and it won the highest bid of the show. And that was, again, so incredibly exciting for me to, one of the artists was like, oh, that's too bad. You gave, you could have sold that and kept the money or something. But I was like, no, this is why I want to do this, to raise money for these organizations. I really want to do that. I care about what's going on with nature. And a lot of artists, like, the art that was at the show was incredible. It always is. We are in an area that is so rich with art that's what made it even more exciting, because it wasn't like, there were crayon drawings on the walls. It was like, wow, I am in really good company here. So anyway, that was super fun. That also gave me some courage to enter some other things. I started to enter into juried exhibits. This painting, which you've probably recognized the bird anyways from the cover of my book, and this was juried in, again, you can read more about how that happened, and there were a lot of different, it was an international call for art, so there were like 10 different countries, and for some reason my painting made it in there. And so it was really another very, very exciting. I really couldn't believe it. And the name of the show is called In Tandem. And what that means, what they wanted was two things working together to create a desired result. And so I thought, well, that's kind of a good message. And so I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's too long. If you watch, you can watch it back on Zoom. But basically what it says is, Ospreys coming back to the South Coast is a testament to scientists and policymakers working in tandem, working together. In 1940, there were about 1,000 breeding pairs of ospreys, like a lot, probably more than that. They didn't really even know how to count them back then. There was probably a lot more. Because of the spraying of pesticides, their population plummeted. And by 1964, there were only 11 pair of osprey in all of Massachusetts. And the audience, when I read that at the Cape Cod Museum of Art, everybody's like, what? because there are so many here now. It's just kind of shocking. So basically, just trying to talk about what can we do? Are there things we can do now to kind of help? We brought them back. What can we do to help our Earth now? And so my takeaway from this slide is art can educate us. It can send a message. It can make us care about something much bigger and deeper than ourselves. So I think that's pretty cool. I am now going to detour, and I like to recommend books. I'm reading constantly. So I'm going to talk about Rick Rubin. These are not my gold nuggets. These are his. So he wrote a book called The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. What does he say? Open yourself up to creative inspiration. For me, that was being out on the river with those ospreys. It filled me up and I got a zing. So for those of you who are artists out there in any medium, whether you're a musician or a quilter, my aunt is here today, she's a quilter. Notice when you're feeling that zing in your body, and you will feel it in your body, and open yourself up to that. Monitor your flow of stimuli. Oh, is that important? Like, are we filling up on dread, on news? The news isn't very cheerful. Or are we filling ourselves up by going to galleries, going to plays, listening to music? And for me, most of all, being out in nature. And I know a lot of artists do this. The next thing he talks about is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. You've already heard me say that about 4 times of things that I was really kind of not too confident about, and push through it somehow. It's worth it. It really is worth it. And it makes you feel more alive. Lower the stakes, have some fun. Didn't really have a whole lot of preconceived notions, as you heard as well. I really am still kind of shocked and awed that I'm even where I'm at right now. But that's part of not having real expectations. Crafting your ideas into reality, that's hard. That was really probably one of the major reasons why I moved away from art back then, because I'd have an idea in my head and I couldn't get it to look like what it was looking like in my head. And maybe I should have stuck with it longer back then. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I'm here today. So how do you get your craft better? What do you do? Do you take a course? Do you take a lesson? Do you go online? There's stuff online. I did a birding, how to watercolor birds online. It was great. $10, easy. Why do we make art? I love this. He says it's a surrender to forces greater than you that constantly whisper in your ear if you take the time to listen. I think that's just beautiful. I really can get choked up when I read that, because it's really I think that if you listen to what your body and your mind and your experiences are telling you, especially as an artist, that's going to move you to the next step. How are you showing up on your creative journey? This is something that I talk to. I actually have a lot of artists that come to me in therapy from different art mediums, and we talk about do you have a space where you're doing your art? Have you set that space aside? Don't have that space, it's going to be really hard to lug it all out. And if you're a musician, that means having your guitar right out in the living room, easy to practice. If you're a watercolorist, it means even if you just have a little table, and there are some Don, what's Don's last name? Barbara Cadaret.
Yeah, correct.
Has a tiny little, he is an incredible artist, and he has a tiny little work table set aside in his living room where he paints the most amazing miniature folk art stuff. But I thought I was going to walk into his studio and see a huge, no. So you don't need a lot of room, but you do need that dedicated space. Okay. So here are my 3 favorite quotes from the book. Art creates a profound connection between the artist and the audience. Through that connection, both can heal. I love that. Living life as an artist is a practice. You're either engaging in the practice or you're not. It makes no sense to say you're not good at it, Pam. It's like saying I'm not good at being a monk. You're either living as a monk or you're not. We tend to think of the artist's work as the output, but the real work of the artist is a way of being in the world. I just love that. That's my picture of my Kindle, actually, so you can see my Kindle cover in back. So third one is, this really spoke to me because I always wonder about this myself. When is the work done? When is it done? And I see a lot of artists on Facebook posting like, is it done? Is it done? I don't know if it's done. I think it needs more work. What he says is there's no formula or method. It's intuition. The work is done when you feel it is. And you feel it, at least I do, in my body. And I'm going to give you a demo about what that means for me. So here was a work in progress. It was, some ospreys on a nest, a mom and a chick there. And here it was going to be osprey and 2 chicks, one back here. I don't know if you can see my pointer, and one here. But this little guy over here looked like he's going to fall right out. There was too much negative space here. And I looked at it like, oh, I don't like that. And I just kept walking away, walking back, walking away. Thought it was going to be done, but it really didn't feel done. And then what I did was I added another chick behind this chick. And suddenly it was done. And there's the close-up so you can see. And this is how they kind of are in the nest. They really are sort of camouflaged against each other like that. And I can go into more of that detail in my other talks. But anyway, so feel that in your body. You'll feel it when it's done, when 2 became 3. Now we're going to go back to the river. Yeah, we've got about 20 more, well, maybe a little more than 20 minutes. So that's kind of what it's like. You're sort of puttering along in the boat, and there are dozens of ospreys overhead. And every day out on the river was a new and exciting adventure. And there was a community there, a community of birders, of fellow birders, of environmentalists and scientists. And I started to become a part of that. And I knew almost immediately that I was going to have to begin writing and painting about it. It just had to come out of me somehow. And I didn't know exactly how. And I actually went out for lunch with a woman named Sandy Hall, who some of you will know as an artist who lives in our area. I had met her, Barbara, at that watershed exhibit because we're both gallery sitting one day. And I said, oh, maybe I'll call Sandy. We kind of hit it off, shared our journey. And, she was asking me, well, Pam, like, how's your art coming? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I should write a book. I don't know. I don't want to write a book, not another book. And so in that meeting with Sandy, she said, Pam, you are so excited about what you're doing right now. You need to start writing this down. You just do. And see where it takes you. She really, really encouraged me. She could just see it. And so I said, I don't know. The book I'd want to write, it wouldn't be a kid's book. It would be adults, but I'd like to put paintings in it. And she was like, yeah, but Pam, adults, grown-ups need pictures too. I was like, oh yeah, I guess they do. Here's some more nests, incredible eggs and nesting materials. What is not to be inspired? Look at those colors. It's just gorgeous. Illustrations for the book. Here's my first chick that I saw, and I did do a little baby chick. I'm looking at the chat box. Oh, okay. That's all right. Yep. So I began to see connections between my life and career as a therapist and what was transpiring out on the river. The scientists had a different way of observing, but like therapists and like artists, they're quiet observers, and they like to be out in nature. And many of them see nature as healing as well. There are artists that like to do plein air painting, and Barbara Healy is one of them, and is very, I know I keep saying Barbara, this is really genuine though. Barbara is, if you have never seen her work, please look her up. I know, Barbara, you don't expect a plug, but she is an amazing plein air artist. Her colors are incredible. I don't do that. I'm not doing, even though I love nature, I don't know, I just haven't done it. But a lot of artists do that. And I think part of that thrill is being in that light, seeing the light in person, not doing it from a photograph. And I don't know, what do you think, Barbara? What is it for you?
Well, I think it is. When you're doing plein air work, you're experiencing it with all your senses. You're outside. You're not just copying from a photograph. It's a very different.
Yep.
And part of it is, since you have a limited time before nature changes, whether it's the weather or the sun, you really have to edit, and that comes through you. Instead of in a photograph, you can find every single little detail. You have to pick what's important.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could join us sometime, Pamela.
No, I need to do that. I will do it, but I feel very inadequate, as you can tell. So this was, many people will not experience seeing a day-old osprey in person. And for you, I am going to show you this, and I could watch this about 500 times and still love it every single time. So cute. I'm going to do it again because I just think it's so cute. Whoops. Wait. One more. There we go. So adorable. Love them. We would find all sorts of things out there. This is a eggshell. Ospreys do kick the eggs out after they've hatched. That's a painting for the book. One of the few pictures of me in the whole process. That's me collecting data, and this is from Westport Watershed. The director, Deborah Weaver. A sad day out on the river was a day that we found an osprey tangled in some fishing line. And again, you can read more about that in the chapter on loss, but I will just say it was gut-wrenching for all of us. The week before, that nest had 2 eggs, and this was a male osprey, the provider for that nest, and he drowned in fishing line, and it was an entire family wiped out because the fisherman had carelessly not cut his line. So sometimes art is sad. These are the talons of, and I go into more detail of that in my talk about what that looked like. He was banded, so you can see that band. And this was the fishing lure. that he had been attracted to, dove in the water, and then became entangled in the string. Finally, banding day arrived with none other than Osprey expert Dr. Alan Poole on July 5th. We are fortunate enough to have one of the world's leading Osprey experts. He's written 2 seminal books on Ospreys. He lives in our town, believe it or not. And he is a character. I write a lot about him. And he's sort of like, some of you may know him. For me, he's like a cross between Indiana Jones and Crocodile Dundee. He's just like this nature guy that, you know, just gets stuff done. And I'm not going to read this. I was going to read a little bit about how I felt when I held an Osprey, but I'm not going to do that because I'm looking at the time and I want to leave enough time for questions. So here, literally no photos of me holding the Ospreys because I'm taking the pictures, but here is, we put them in this sort of plastic, it's not really a bag, but it's a holder, head down, and that's how we can weigh them and also band them. They are adult sized when we band them, almost adult size, with about 6 feet of wingspan, very, very, very sharp talons and a sharp beak. So it is not for the faint of heart. I did not go up into the nest to get the Ospreys, but I did hold them, like in this video right here. That isn't me because, again, I'm taking a picture, but this was my job throughout our experience. Here again is
Yeah, I can do them all, but let's do this one.
that's Ellen's voice, and Matt is holding the Osprey. They get all fluffed up after they're banded, and they're like, "What just happened?" So they're very cute, very adorable. Again, some more weighing, so you can just kind of see a little bit about that process. Matt has a band in his mouth. He's going to put it on. This is Gina Pertel, who is the director of the project, an amazing scientific woman who just knows a lot about everything and is so super brave. She just like marches up the ladder, reaches into the nest, grabs hold of these huge, you know, really pretty big Ospreys, and you can see their claws, and then brings it down like a football under her arm. And then the rest of the process kind of happens. Finally, there is Translocation Day. And I don't know how many of you know this, but what we're doing on the Westport River, another really exciting thing that has to do with the environment, is the population of ospreys in Illinois really did get wiped out by DDT and never flourished back. They never came back. And so 5 years ago now, Westport has been supplying a dozen osprey chicks per year to that project. And we have them to spare. There are probably 100 nests on the Westport River. And a few moments earlier on this day, it was like thundering and lightning, and I didn't even know if this is going to happen. Is it not going to happen? And it did happen. And so what we would do is there was a whole big, probably 2-page plan because you're really trying to reduce the stress on the osprey itself. And they have a plane ride ahead of them. So not only they get taken from the nest, then they get put in these little boxes. And then we bring them over to the Westport field house. And then from there, we transport them to the airport. And then from the airport, they get flown to Illinois. And this is Dick Manchester. his piece of artwork, he is also an artist, for those of you who don't know. I think his was the highest bid in our show. He did a carved eagle this year, 400. Were there any above 400?
There might have been one other.
Okay, but pretty high. He's a beautiful woodworker. And so this is the boat kind of going out to me. Here is Judy and Harold. They're from the Pascamanset Birding Club. They are volunteers as well, putting those chick boxes onto the little Cessna plane. This is Dr. Ting. She is the professor at the University of Illinois who's in charge of that relocation project. And this is what the inside of the plane looks like. It is coated with plastic and tiny. And the reason why it's coated with plastic is because osprey chicks, as part of a defense mechanism, poop. And they poop out, they shoot their poop, believe it or not, out the holes of these boxes. I know that for a fact because that happened to me in my car. And thank goodness the day before, Gina had warned all the volunteers to make sure that the plastic goes all the way up the sides of your car and the reason they do that is not because of the smell, which is the most disgusting smell you would ever smell in your entire life. No lie, really unbelievably gross. But what happens is that if they do that on an enemy that is approaching, whether it's an animal or typically it's a bird, because a lot of great horned owls like to eat osprey chicks, unfortunately. If they spray, those birds can temporarily get sticky wings and not be able to fly as well. So that is their natural born, that's the only defense they really have as chicks. So you learned a little something about osprey chicks. And let's see, where are we here? I'm glad I peered into the plane, not what I expected. It's completely covered in plastic. Every surface, seat, floor, and up to the ceiling, like the scene of a murder about to be committed by, I don't know, like Dexter or something. That's what it looked like. Some more connections, some more, how do I keep connected to my community? What happens next? Meeting Amy Thurber at our South Coast Artist Celebration, anniversary celebration in the summer. Amy is in the book. Here's a little painting I did of her. And she actually at that meeting said, Pam, sure, if you self-publish, Fred and I have self-published, and I would love to talk with you about what we've learned. And so the generosity of people, I think, will constantly amaze you. Well, it amazes me, certainly, with the people and the artists and the women that I've met in this area who you just kind of say, hey, I need something, and they're right there with you, talking with you about it and offering their time. The generosity is just incredible. And I think that's people in general. I think if you reach out to people, most people genuinely want to help. They really do. This was a photograph, one of my photographs that I took. The newspaper, this was Ted Hayes, contacted me for some photos. So we have sent 60 ospreys to Illinois, and 2 have returned. And what that means is that when they are young, they will spend, when they first get there, they'll spend that rest of the summer learning how to fly, learning how to hunt. Then they will fly south hundreds and thousands of miles by themselves without anyone or their parents or their siblings. They will nest in places like Florida or South America, really far away, for a couple of years till they reach sexual maturity. And then they will have what's called site fidelity, and they will fly back, hopefully in Illinois' case, to the same place where they learned how to fly and fish the very first time. And so we have had 3, this says 2, but there were actually 3 who have returned to start repopulating that Illinois population. And Dr. Ting, when I met with her, said, oh my gosh, Pam, I was really getting worried because, we've been doing this for 4 years and none of the Ospreys were coming back. And people kept saying, where are the Ospreys? When are they coming back? And finally they did come back and they're starting families. So it's very, very, it's important ecologically too, because we're seeing what do we do? How does this impact the environment? How does this impact our populations of birds and wildlife that are diminishing because of other reasons? These are some photographs I took on the river. This is, so sometimes I use my art, I submit for newsletters. This was a whale watch I went on. This has nothing to do with it, but I love these pictures of whales that I took, so I wanted to show them to you. So it was like the best whale watch by the Lloyd Center. So anyway, that was kind of fun, but it's another way where you can use your art, thinking about, oh, maybe I can take some pictures while I'm doing something with something else. Because the people that are running the event, a lot of times they're not taking photographs, they're not recording it, and they love it when people help them out in that way. Here is a friend of mine. We were talking about publishing. She is actually married to the guy who, R.W. Alley, who's Paddington Bear. So that was kind of a fun lunch. Go to exhibits, go to lectures, go to openings, go to classes, volunteer. These are all ways to bring your art to another level. One of the things this is Elizabeth Rush. I had gone to her lecture, and afterwards I went in line and said, oh, it's so exciting to meet you. I love your book. And I had earlier in the summer emailed her, like, just asking her for some, like maybe a quote for the book. She never got back to me. I was like, that's fine, she's busy. So I just gave her my card in line as, and she looked at the back of the card and she's like, oh, you're the one who paints all those ospreys. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. Oh, send me your book, I'd love to read it. So like, I would never have gotten any endorsements from her if I didn't go to that lecture that night and made a point to say hello to her. These are how things happen, at least to me. I don't know if these things happen to everybody, but this is how my life has been going for the past 2 years. This is me on the walk, very excited. That was the day that I got her little email blurb in the mail. I'm like, oh my God, Elizabeth Rush likes my book. I can't believe it. I asked also Cy Montgomery, some of you may know as a really very famous naturalist. She's had a lot of books on the New York Times bestseller list. Amy Thurber, when I met with her, said, Pam, I think you should ask Cy Montgomery for a blurb. I'm like, oh, come on, Amy. She is not gonna be interested in my book. What are you talking about? And she said, no, Fred and I did that. Fred says she's really nice. You should do it. Why don't you do that, Pam? And I'm like, all right. Sent her an email. Same day, get an email back. Oh, yes, please send me your book. It sounds like something I'd like to read. She read but she said, you can't send an electronic book to me because I don't read books on screen. It has to be hard copy. And it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do that? So I got a hard copy copied. It was not edited. It wasn't even professionally edited. There were so many mistakes in it. It's very embarrassing to even admit that. I brought it to Staples. I had it coil bound for $60. I know that's like double the price, whatever, of my book. And I mailed it to her. And she wrote me the most beautiful blurb. And she read it on Thanksgiving. On Thanksgiving, Cy Montgomery was reading my book. So anyway, blown away. Another thing that I like to talk with people about is joining Facebook. Some people aren't on social media. I think it's really important for artists. A woman found me on social media because I had posted this. I don't want to go into the whole story of it, but I posted and she found me. She tracked me down and asked me if I had any paintings for sale. And I said, oh yeah, I have a few. She lives in South Carolina. So I did a little Zoom thing with her, showed her some paintings. She bought like 3 of my paintings. And this is from just a Facebook thing. You just don't know where you're going to find your audience or people that appreciate your work. So we're going to segue once again. I think because we started late, I'm going to keep going for a few more minutes.
The blue sky is bright. Hearts and underneath something true. No sadness in me. All things and what they do. All wasted on.
So that sort of transitions me to sort of just the last, I'm going to kind of put on my therapist hat one more time and talk with you about, and I was actually talking to my old professor about this before the Zoom call started. So social workers study systems. We look at all sorts of systems, not just the individual. And as I was writing this book, the draft of it, I started really thinking about how it's really hard to write this without writing about the environment, because I'm out in the environment every single day, and there are lots of different things happening. We saw, there would be trash, or we saw some impacts of climate change happening with some of the chicks. And why we're doing art, why I'm doing art, why I think a lot of people are doing art, is to connect to something greater than ourselves. And so I started to think about who could I talk to, or where would I learn some more about what I could do to help the environment. And so it's hard to write a book about ospreys, spend all this time in nature without talking about the environment. I didn't anticipate how much it would matter. I started out simply wanting to get more pictures of ospreys and nests and platforms and close-ups of cute chicks that I could use in my paintings. Then the story of being out on the river and checking nests with mass Audubon seemed like it might be an interesting one to tell. But this experience turned into something much more, and it brought me to a central question. What is the most important thing we can do to help our environment today? And does anything we do even matter? And so those are big questions. And so I decided to have a little interview with Mother Earth. And that interview is in my book. And it talks about what she has gone through, Mother Earth, in terms of trauma of what we have done. And then I thought about what could we do to help? And I found out that upwards of 2/3 of all people, all Americans, state that they rarely or never discuss climate crisis with family or friends. That was astounding to me, but I think that's probably a pretty realistic statistic. Now, that's not true for the scientists that I was meeting. That was probably pretty true for friends and family. And so I thought, how can we end climate silence? What are some things that we can do? And basically, it's just really asking our friends or our family 3 questions. What do you think's happening to the environment? What are you doing to help? And is there something we can do together? Kind of simple. What I found when I've asked people that is I've gotten a whole lot of different answers, and I talk about how to ask those a little bit more in the book. But I've gotten a lot less hopeless about the environment because people are doing things. They're just not doing enough things. We just need to do a little more than we're already doing. And I sort of compare it to going to therapy. You know, if you go to therapy, put in an hour a week and then you do some homework. So that was something that I felt, you know, it's kind of hard to segue into that in an hour talk. But as artists, as appreciators of the beauty in the world, I think it is hard to not become sad when we think about what's happening to the earth. And if we can engage with our art in having more meaning and more conversation around some of this stuff, get people talking about it, I think that's important, and I think worth doing. So let's see what I want to do here. Almost done. Hang in there, folks. Art creates a profound connection between the artist and the audience. Through that connection, both can heal. It hatched on February 29th. I wanted to invite people to the fundraiser at the Watershed. There's a bunch of other events too. You could go to my website. And so I'm going to leave you with this message, and then we can ask questions. As artists, any type of artists, whether it be musicians or dancers or writers or photographers, can use our art as a vehicle for healing, both for ourselves and for those who experience our work. We can communicate very important messages alongside of what we do. And I like to think that all of us, those who create art and those who support artists and experience it, are connected in powerful ways. So I would like to encourage you to begin to think about your art in that way. And I am ready for questions if anybody has any. And what do we do?
Pamela, I'll ask the first one because I'm very curious. What do you do as your job as a therapist?
Well, I am specifically I'm a trauma therapist. And so I work with people who have anxiety and depression, but who have also experienced some sort of trauma. So maybe they have had an abusive relationship in their childhood or in their present. Maybe they've been in an accident of some type, that they have some traumatic memories. I worked through COVID with a lot of people who were on the front lines. A lot of nurses and teachers too were very traumatized through COVID for some things they were being asked to do. So I do a lot of different techniques to kind of help with that.
Thanks.
Should I get out of my screen?
Yeah, we could go to the gallery view.
Okay, I'm trying to, okay, stop share. Okay, here we go.
So everyone can unmute themselves if you want to ask a question. But you did a great job. I really enjoyed it. Pamela, you need to unmute.
Whoops.
Yeah, somehow.
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question. Have you seen any of the ospreys back? I know that the males usually come back early, and I live right near Gunning Island, up on the hill. So I look out my window and I see 3 of the nests. And I swore to God, I was with my mother yesterday, and I said, "That's an osprey, and it's over Gunning Island." I said, "But it's a little early." So I wasn't quite sure if maybe it was just a dirty seagull that was really big, or, but I couldn't get to the binoculars fast enough, but I swore, I was like, "They're back, they're back."
It's a very exciting time for us on the South Coast when they come back. We're all like sign of spring and we love them. They're like our friends. So I personally haven't seen it. I would not be surprised if they came back a little earlier this year. Typically, I believe it could be any time in March. It's still kind of early because,
But they're so distinctive. I usually can spot them out of all the birds out here.
I don't know. I haven't seen any yet. And I'm always looking and listening, mostly listening.
Any other questions? So I know your book's available on Amazon. Is it available anywhere locally?
Duval's had contacted me, so I think they're gonna order some. It will be available at Padenham at the Outfitters, probably at the Drawing Room. And I think that's all for now. I don't know where else, but you can always ask your independent bookstore. A lot of people have ordered it. Thank you, the people that are here that have ordered it already. Appreciate it. Oh, there's some chat stuff going on. Oh, thank you. Aw.
Yeah, I think just thanks.
Yes, Susan Bailey, is it at Partners? No. Can you tell Partners they need to carry my book if you know them there? They don't want to do it. I don't know why. They're kind of I don't know. They're kind of funny over there, but we love them anyway. So I do have my contact info too, but I don't know if I can get back to that.
Do you want to put it in the chat box?
Hold on a second. Let me just go back here. So this, if you need it, that's it. If you want to write that down or you need it, you can always, I'm pretty accessible. You can.
And you're even on TikTok.
On TikTok. I think TikTok's the silliest thing that was ever created, but I guess you're supposed to be on it for some reason.
And you're Pammy, it's great.
That's who I am. I'm reading some of the chat stuff. Okay, awesome. Thank you. And please come if you're local, please come. I'd love to see you in person. And thank you for coming and giving an hour of your time to learn more about.
Well, thank you very much. Everybody enjoyed it. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pam. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Be well.
You too. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.